So what I want to do today is to show you how to format text in Python. At the moment, when you print text to the screen, it just puts it on the left-hand side. You can't control how many decimal places there are. You can't control how many columns it's in or which position it's in, whether it's on the right, on the left, or in the middle. So I'm going to show you a few things you can do with this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a string which is called layout1, but I'm going to format it in a special way. So I'm going to put a squiggly bracket there. Don't put any spaces in this bit because otherwise it will go wrong. I'm going to put a normal colon there. That symbol there, so the power symbol. I'm going to put how many columns I want, so 30. I'm going to close off my squiggly bracket. I'm going to close my speech marks. Now, this thing quite often is called a template. And what that does is it tells Python we want to format it in 30 columns, put it in the middle of those 30. I've got a string here already, and I'm just going to show you how to use it. So print. I'm going to give it the name of my string template. I'm going to tell it I want to use the format function. I'm going to tell it what I want it to format. And that's literally it. So let's see what it does. There you go. So although that's difficult to see, you can just about see that that's in 30 columns, and it's centered in the middle of those 30 columns. There's a couple of other tricks we can play as well. We can put it on the right hand side. So I'm going to do something very, very similar. I'm going to take layout 1, I'm going to change that to layout 2, and I'm simply going to take that symbol and change it to the greater than symbol. I'm going to do that one more time because we might as well do this all in one go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put through my templates, and I'm just going to change them. Make sure that things are named correctly. And there we've got it. We've got all of these are in 30 character, 30 columns, but this one's in the middle, that one is on the right hand side, and this one is forced onto the left hand side. So the next thing to try is to just play around with this, see what you can do. So try and change the number of columns here, so change it to 15, change this around if you want as well. So you could also change the string as well. The next thing I want to do is to show you how to format numbers, and there are two styles of number here. So I'm going to first of all call this num layout 1, and again I'm going to use exactly the same system. I'm going to tell it to center it. I'm going to put it in 20 columns, but this time, and this is a bit strange, this is if you want to format a decimal integer. So if you want to format the integer, it's a bit strange that Python calls them decimal integers, but that's just something we have to live with. The other thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to format a, much more usefully I guess, an actual floating point number. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take exactly the same idea, but here I'm going to put it in 5 spaces, so 5 columns, but I'm going to format it to 4 decimal places. So let's just see what the result of that is. So what we need to do is we need a number. So my integer, I'm going to make that 32, and my float, I'm going to make that 91 point some ridiculous number, like that. And now I'm going to show you the print statements. So print, correct the slight error, layout 1 dot format, and here I'm going to do the integer, and on the next one I'm going to do num layout 2, and here I'm going to do the float. So let's see what happens when I run that. And now you can see that this thing is in 20 spaces centered, and it's formatted as an integer. But this thing now is sitting in as a 4 decimal places. Now notice that it has exceeded its 5 spaces, so that's one problem that you just need to watch out for. I actually need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I need 7 spaces really. So strictly speaking, that should be a 7. So you just need to watch out a little bit as to how this formatting works, because sometimes, as you can see here, that it doesn't always fit exactly the way you might expect it to. So let's start. What I'd like you to do is just to play around with these numbers. Play around, change that number, try changing this to 2 decimal places, change the number of columns here. So just play around with it for a little while. What we're going to do now is we're now going to start combining formats. So I'm going to call this one column format 1, and I'm going to start off exactly the same way, but here what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 10. It's just going to be right justify 10 characters. I can actually put a space here or any other funny character I want to. So what I'm going to do is put a space and this line character, sometimes called a pipe character. You can't put spaces inside the funny square brackets, but you can put spaces outside of them. I'm going to do exactly the same thing here, but with 15 characters. And then finally, we're going to right justify with 10 characters, and I don't need anything after that. So that's my first format. Let's just see what that does before we go any further. So what I've done here is I've put in my formatting statement, but notice here I've got my 3 strings that I'm going to use, and they link directly to each one of these. So let's just see what happens. And there you have it. We've got tea, coffee, water. They're all in their own spaces. So the tea is left justified in 10. Coffee is in the middle of 15 characters. Water is right justified on 10 characters. Let's see if we can make that work for numbers as well. So I'm literally going to put it under here, I think. And what I'd like to do is to change it so I am making that one a decimal integer. I am also going to make that one a decimal integer, but what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to make it a floating point with 2 decimal places. Let's print out some data. So col format 2 format, and here I'm going to put in a number, and let's put this in as well. So notice these are numbers, so they don't need to be in any kind of quotes. And here we've got it. We've now got tea, coffee, water. They're underneath each other, and the reason they're underneath each other is because I use the same number of columns. You can start to see that you can start to build up a quite nice table of columns and rows here with a heading, and that's something that you'll see in some of the later questions, like question 5 in the exam. So the next thing I want to do is to show you how to create borders. And borders are a slightly different trick. Okay, so with a border, what you're going to do is you're not going to worry about a format command, you're just going to do a print command. And I'm just going to pretend that my border is going to be that character. It can be any character you like, so you can change this. put your multiplication system symbol in, and I'm going to make this 35 characters. So let's just see what that does. And there's my border underneath there. Doesn't quite fit, but that's okay. So let's not worry too much about that, but you can expand it. You can make it 40, 50, you have to play around with it a little bit. I'm going to create another column format, so we can put that together. So we're going to make that 12. It's just a normal string. We're going to make this 12 again with a normal string, and we're going to make this 12, just a normal string. I'm just going to adjust that to 36. Give it its name, so make sure it's not the same as the others. And I'm just going to change this so it's got some text in here. So I'm going to go month, year, average temperature. Let's just see what that does. There you go. It's still not quite fitting, so we might need to expand that. So you might need to play around with this until you get it right. And the reason for that is because I've got spaces in between them, so I just need to keep going until I manage to do it. And you can calculate this, but I always find it easier just to do it by eye. So let's do one more thing here. We're going to do another format. And here I'm going to have this one simply be, this one is going to be a 2 decimal places to a float. And I'm going to change the numbers here. So this is a mixture of text and numbers. So let's make that 2018, and I'm going to change that one to a decimal, so just to make sure it does it. It will still work, but let's just make sure that we've got it absolutely right. I'm going to make that 12.5. I'm going to add on another border at the bottom, and just to make sure that it's not in the same table, I'm just going to put some space in between here. This isn't strictly necessary, it's just for the demonstration. And let's run that through. And there you have it. You've got a table that's been formatted. It's got some strings in it. It's got some numbers in it, and they've been formatted to do decimal places. So there's lots of things you can do here. So have a play with this and just get a feel for it before you move on to the actual exercises.